In a Los Angeles County morgue, a coroner stared at the autopsy report in his hands and whispered, "This can't be real." The document revealed that one of Hollywood's most beloved stars had died with an empty stomach despite supposedly overdosing on pills, a medical impossibility that suggested something far more sinister. The truth had finally surfaced from files buried for decades. Recently leaked autopsy records from Golden Age Hollywood stars have exposed shocking revelations that the studios desperately tried to hide. From mysterious injection marks to unexplained radiation levels, these cold medical documents tell stories that shatter the glamorous myths we've believed for generations. Subscribe now to uncover the disturbing medical evidence that reveals how fame, power, and deadly secrets destroyed Hollywood's biggest legends from the inside out. Marilyn Monroe, the impossible overdose that exposed a cover-up. The scene at 12305 Helena Drive that August night in 1962 was too perfect to be suicide. Marilyn Monroe lay peacefully on her bed, one hand resting on a telephone that had slipped from her grasp. Every detail appeared carefully arranged, prompting a Los Angeles Times reporter to shudder and declare, "It looks like someone staged everything." The autopsy results deepened the mystery with findings that defied medical explanation. Monroe's blood contained barbiturate levels high enough to kill an elephant, yet her stomach was completely empty. No pill fragments, no powder residue, nothing consistent with oral ingestion. Dr. Thomas Noguchi, the notorious coroner to the stars, wrote definitively in his report, "This cannot be explained by orally ingested pills." The medical evidence pointed to intravenous or rectal administration, methods requiring assistance and suggesting foul play. Rumors immediately connected her death to the Kennedy brothers, with whom she allegedly had affairs and dangerous knowledge of classified information. Journalist Anthony Summers later revealed that Monroe kept a red notebook documenting everything she heard from John and Robert Kennedy about Cuba and other national secrets. A nurse present that night told NBC years later that Monroe's body appeared too clean, too tidy, like a staged play. The pristine scene contradicted the chaos typically associated with suicide, while the impossible toxicology results suggested professional execution disguised as overdose. Monroe's death forced America to confront an uncomfortable truth, that even its greatest sex symbol could be silenced when she became inconvenient to powerful men. The medical evidence that should have triggered a murder investigation was instead buried beneath layers of official denial and Hollywood spin. James Dean, the rebel's hidden love life, destroyed in metal and fire. When James Dean's mangled Porsche 550 Spider collided with a Ford Tudor on Highway 46, it didn't just kill Hollywood's rebel icon, it obliterated evidence of secrets that could have destroyed careers. The 24-year-old's body arrived at the San Luis Obispo morgue, so devastated that a pathologist told the Los Angeles Times, "It looked like it had come from a Nevada bomb test." Dean's neck was unnaturally snapped, his chest burst open, and his face disfigured beyond recognition. His liver and spleen were pulverized, flooding his abdomen with blood. But while police filed their reports, Hollywood moved swiftly to erase evidence of Dean's hidden romantic life with several powerful male stars. Within days of the crash, Warner Brothers trucks appeared at Dean's Sherman Oaks apartment, hauling away suitcases of letters, photographs, and journals. Neighbors watched as studio personnel systematically eliminated any trace of Dean's relationships with Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, and Tab Hunter. Private correspondence between Dean and these closeted stars vanished permanently. Playwright William Bast, Dean's rumored lover, later revealed in his memoir that Dean had confided, "I don't care whether I love men or women. What I fear most is loneliness." These words, combined with the suspicious cleanup of his personal effects, painted a picture of a young man forced to live a double life in an era of brutal homophobia. The crash that killed Dean wasn't just a traffic accident. It became a convenient cover for Hollywood's systematic erasure of inconvenient truths. His death represented the ultimate sacrifice demanded by an industry that celebrated rebellion on screen while enforcing rigid conformity behind the cameras. Elizabeth Taylor, The Queen's Heart, revealed. Decades of hidden surgery. Elizabeth Taylor's violet eyes and legendary beauty concealed a body that resembled a medical battlefield when she died in 2011. The autopsy at Cedars-Sinai Hospital revealed a heart enlarged to 1.5 times normal size, surrounded by layers of scar tissue from dozens of surgeries the public never knew about. Her medical file read like a horror story of self-destruction in pursuit of eternal youth. Brain surgery, partial bowel resection, experimental bone marrow transplants, and repeated cosmetic interventions had left her organs ravaged beyond repair. Her liver showed severe degeneration from decades of morphine, Valium, and Demerol dependency, while her kidneys had shriveled from overwork filtering toxins. Most shocking was the discovery of multiple lung scars from secret cancer treatment in 2006 that her family had never disclosed. The coroner noted evidence of cosmetic surgeries from chest and waist to cheekbones, procedures undertaken to maintain her camera-ready appearance despite failing health. A doctor present at the post-mortem told the Los Angeles Times, "When we opened her chest, we saw a battlefield, a body ravaged by scalpels and drugs." The woman who had epitomized glamour and beauty had paid an unimaginable price for maintaining her image in an industry that demanded physical perfection at any cost. Medical notes also recorded Taylor's prolonged battles with depression stemming from conflicts over her identity and hidden relationships, including a rumored deep connection with singer Kate Thompson. Even in death, the Queen of Hollywood bore the crushing pressure to be perfect that had literally broken her heart and destroyed her from within. Marlon Brando, The Godfather's Secret Surgical Scars. The bloated body that arrived at UCLA Medical Center in 2004 bore little resemblance to the magnetic young actor who had revolutionized cinema. Marlon Brando's corpse weighed over 300 pounds, his skin wrinkled and distended, looking as if he had fought an unwinnable war against his own flesh. The autopsy revealed not just the expected damage from decades of overeating, severely damaged liver, lungs ravaged by chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, but also mysterious surgical scars that no public medical record could explain. Long, twisting marks across his abdomen and chest told stories of secret operations hidden from the world. An anonymous nurse speaking to CBS revealed the shocking truth. He secretly underwent multiple weight loss surgeries. At one point, they even removed part of his stomach. It all happened in the shadows, as if Brando were trying to escape his own body. The man who had once embodied raw masculinity and power had spent his final years undergoing desperate procedures to reclaim control over his deteriorating physique. Journalist Peter Manso described Brando's body as a map of illness and concealment, while the Los Angeles Times wrote coldly that a legend had been swallowed by his own weight. Additional scars indicated heart surgery, pancreatic procedures, and multiple treatments for diabetic complications, all kept from public view to preserve what remained of his iconic image. The revelation that Hollywood's most powerful actor had died as a prisoner of his own flesh served as a brutal reminder that even gods could be destroyed by their human limitations. The Godfather was never invincible. He was simply a man whose body had betrayed him as completely as he had betrayed it. Paul Newman, The Cool Blue Eyes Concealed. Coal-black lungs, Paul Newman's legendary blue eyes, never revealed the horror hidden in his chest. When the beloved actor died in 2008, his autopsy exposed lungs so blackened by cigarette smoke that a coroner compared them to coal extracted from Pennsylvania mines. The man who had epitomized cool masculinity had literally poisoned himself from within. Newman's addiction to cigarettes began in the 1950s when Hollywood promoted smoking as the ultimate symbol of sophistication. Life magazine photographs captured him with cigarettes perpetually dangling from his lips, finishing entire packs during single shoots. What appeared stylish on camera became a death sentence written in tar and nicotine. The autopsy revealed the devastating consequences of decades of abuse. Newman's lungs retained no trace of healthy pink tissue, only pitch-black masses caked with tar so thick that the scalpel sounded like a saw cutting through wood. The bronchial branches had hardened into rigid pipes, while his heart struggled with chronic failure from overwork. A coroner told the New York Times, "I've operated on coal miners in Pennsylvania, but never saw lungs on a movie star this black. They were heavy and reeked of tar." The man who had charmed audiences in Cool Hand Luke and The Sting had slowly suffocated himself while maintaining his effortlessly charismatic public image. Newman's will contained a haunting final message. "If I die from cigarettes, consider it a warning." When the autopsy results leaked, his quote became headline news across CNN and NBC. The actor's death served as a brutal indictment of Hollywood's role in glamorizing self-destructive habits that killed an entire generation of stars. Judy Garland, The Rainbow's End, revealed teenage drug abuse. Dorothy's journey over the rainbow ended in a London apartment where Judy Garland's 36-kilogram body told the story of Hollywood's systematic destruction of child stars. When authorities found her lifeless in 1969, the autopsy revealed barbiturate levels far beyond safety limits and internal damage that stunned even experienced coroners. The pathologist's most chilling observation was that the 47-year-old star possessed the body of a starved teenager. Layers of liver and stomach damage proved Garland had depended on pills since age 14, when MGM executives began controlling her weight and energy through pharmaceutical manipulation. Studio records revealed the horrific routine: diet pills and stimulants during 14-hour shoots, followed by barbiturates to force sleep before the next day's filming. Colleagues recalled assistants slipping Garland pills like candy, creating an addiction that began when she was still an innocent child pursuing her dreams. One actor told CBS, "They handed Judy pills as casually as offering breath mints. She simply obeyed because it was the only way to stay employed." The girl who had sung about hope and dreams beyond the rainbow had been trapped in a pharmaceutical prison from which she never escaped. Her skeletal remains in the London morgue represented more than one woman's tragedy. They were evidence of an industry that consumed children's lives for profit. MGM's abandonment of Garland after her usefulness expired left permanent scars that no amount of talent or fame could heal. The rainbow had always been an illusion, and Dorothy never made it home. Clark Gable, The King's Heart, aged 20 years. Beyond its time. The king of Hollywood's final performance wasn't on screen, but on the set of The Misfits, where Clark Gable pushed his aging body beyond its limits while working alongside the notoriously difficult Marilyn Monroe and Montgomery Clift. The stress of maintaining his legendary status while managing two unstable co-stars literally broke his heart. Gable's smoking escalated from 4 packs daily to 6 during the chaotic production. Friends watched him step off set after each tense scene to light cigarettes and gulp black coffee before returning to perform. The pressure of preserving his king image while managing a collapsing production proved too much for his 60-year-old body. Just 12 days after filming wrapped, Gable collapsed at his Beverly Hills home with severe chest pain. His autopsy revealed a heart swollen to twice its normal size, dark red and ready to burst. Coronary arteries had hardened with plaque deposits, leaving blood struggling through narrow passages like water through a blocked pipe. The chief coroner wrote definitively, "This is not the heart of a 59-year-old man, but of an 80-year-old, aged and decayed." Years of cigarettes, bourbon, and the crushing psychological pressure of maintaining his crown had accelerated his physical deterioration by decades. His liver showed exhaustion, while his stomach was riddled with ulcers from coffee and alcohol abuse. In his final days, Gable confessed to a cameraman, "I'm no longer Rhett Butler. I'm just an old man fighting not to collapse in front of the camera." His death shocked America, forcing audiences to confront the truth that even kings could be killed by the weight of their own crowns. Frank Sinatra. Old blue eyes concealed, lungs black as coal. Frank Sinatra's smooth voice and confident swagger masked internal damage so severe that doctors compared his autopsy to cutting through solid stone. When Old Blue Eyes died in 1998, the examination revealed lungs that had been transformed into blocks of tar by decades of cigarettes and the lifestyle that made him a legend. The autopsy described lungs so fibrotic that tissues had hardened beyond recognition. Airways were nearly blocked by tar deposits that had accumulated over 50 years of smoking, creating thick black clumps that fell from the scalpel like dried asphalt. A participating doctor told the New York Post, "Every time the blade touched, we felt like we were cutting into a solid block, not human lungs." Sinatra's heart proved equally devastated, with arteries up to 90% blocked and vessel walls clogged with deposits. The heart muscle had thinned to the consistency of torn fabric, barely capable of sustaining life. The report stated clearly, "Heart failure due to severe atherosclerosis, not old age, but the accumulated damage of cigarettes, liquor, and relentless stress." The contrast between his public vitality and internal decay was staggering. Even in his final years, Sinatra continued performing, laughing on talk shows, and socializing with the Rat Pack. But it was an elaborate theater designed to conceal a body ready to collapse at any moment. Old rumors about Sinatra's connections to organized crime resurfaced after his death, with many speculating that the mafia lifestyle of booze, cigarettes, and backroom deals had contributed to his physical destruction. He had sung "My Way," but cigarettes and crime had chosen a different path for his ravaged body. John Wayne. The Duke's body. Poisoned by radioactive desert sand. When John Wayne's massive frame was opened at UCLA Medical Center in 1979, doctors discovered radiation levels that defied explanation until Hollywood's darkest secret was finally exposed. The Duke's cancer-ravaged lungs contained abnormal radiation signatures that traced back to a 1954 film shoot that had unknowingly poisoned an entire production. The Conqueror had been filmed in Nevada's desert, barely 200 kilometers from the Yucca Flats nuclear test site. The U.S. government assured everyone the area was completely safe, but behind-the-scenes photographs later released showed Wayne riding horses across gray sand with nuclear test dust still hanging in the distance like deadly fog. The invisible particles had clung to skin, seeped through pores, and lodged in lungs and bloodstreams, delivering death sentences that wouldn't be revealed for 25 years. The statistics were horrifying. Over 90 crew members eventually developed cancer, including Susan Hayward, Pedro Armendariz, and director Dick Powell. One forensic doctor noted bluntly, "The body bears the marks of long-term radiation exposure." Wayne's lungs were stiff and darkened, with cancer spreading from his stomach in patterns consistent with radioactive contamination. The cowboy who had embodied American strength and values had been quietly murdered by his own government's atomic testing program. Public reaction was explosive when the autopsy leaked. The Los Angeles Times called it Hollywood's nuclear legacy, while the New York Times wrote that John Wayne didn't die of old age. He died because of a movie. The symbol of American masculinity had fallen not to bullets or age, but to invisible dust that the military had assured everyone was harmless. Humphrey Bogart, the Casablanca star, reduced to skin and bones. Lauren Bacall's cry of anguish. Aside from those eyes, everything else was gone, became a tragic summary of what awaited doctors in the autopsy room at New York Presbyterian Hospital. When Humphrey Bogart died in 1957, his body weighed less than 40 kilograms, a skeletal frame that shocked even seasoned medical professionals. The coroner faced a cinematic monument, reduced to pale gray skin clinging to jutting ribs, with eyes sunken into dark pits. End-stage esophageal cancer had destroyed his ability to swallow, leaving him unable to eat or drink during his final months. A feeding tube mark remained on his shrunken stomach, while his arms had withered to skin and bone. Bogart's lungs were pitch black from decades of cigarette smoke, releasing a tarry stench when cut open. The bronchial walls had hardened, and lung tissue crumbled like ash between the surgeon's fingers. His liver had shrunk to half-normal size, scarred by endless nights of whiskey and gin that had defined his off-screen persona. Since the 1930s, Bogart had been famous for chain-smoking on Warner Brothers sets, finishing entire packs before noon and spending evenings in bars with bourbon followed by martinis. Hollywood had transformed these vices into symbols of masculinity, making cigarettes and alcohol essential props for leading men. One doctor noted grimly, "This body is the clearest proof that tobacco and alcohol can corrode a man to the core." The habits that had helped create Bogart's cool, detached screen persona had signed his death warrant decades in advance. The man who had epitomized romantic heroism died as a withered shadow, destroyed by the very lifestyle Hollywood had celebrated and promoted. Natalie Wood. The mysterious bruises that suggested murder. Catalina Island's dark waters yielded Natalie Wood's body on that November morning in 1981, but the autopsy revealed evidence that transformed a drowning into one of Hollywood's most enduring murder mysteries. The beloved star of West Side Story bore injuries that contradicted every official explanation of accidental death. The medical examination documented multiple fresh bruises on Wood's left wrist resembling grip marks, along with blotches on her arms and thighs shaped like fingerprints. Her right shin showed a long impact mark, while the pattern of injuries suggested a violent struggle immediately before her death. An anonymous coroner told the Los Angeles Times this was no accident. These are signs of a struggle. On the yacht that night were Robert Wagner, her famously jealous husband, Christopher Walken, her younger co-star, and Captain Dennis Davern. Years later, Davern confessed on NBC's Today Show that the group had fought violently, with furniture crashing before Natalie mysteriously vanished. His testimony ignited speculation about the true circumstances of her disappearance. Rumors of an affair between Wood and Walken had created a tense love triangle, while friends revealed that Wagner's jealousy often turned violent. Most damning was Wood's own words to a friend. "I'm terrified of water. I would never willingly jump off a boat." This statement made theories of accidental drowning virtually impossible to believe. In 2011, Los Angeles police reopened the case and changed the cause of death from accident to undetermined. The bruises on Wood's body remain as cold evidence from beneath Catalina's waves, reminding the world that even America's sweethearts could vanish into the sea while those responsible maintained their silence. Rock Hudson. The Matinee Idol's AIDS battle hidden until death rock. Hudson's death in 1985 shattered Hollywood's final taboo when the ultimate masculine heartthrob was revealed to have died from AIDS. The 59-year-old actor who had epitomized heterosexual romance in films like Giant and Pillow Talk spent his final months desperately trying to conceal a diagnosis that would have destroyed his career decades earlier. Hudson's autopsy revealed the devastating progression of the disease that had ravaged his 6'4" frame. His weight had plummeted from 200 pounds to barely 140, leaving him gaunt and skeletal. Opportunistic infections had attacked his weakened immune system, while Kaposi's sarcoma lesions marked his skin like dark bruises that makeup could no longer hide. The medical examination documented severe pneumonia, cytomegalovirus, and toxoplasmosis, the brutal trilogy of infections that marked AIDS in its final stages. His brain showed signs of HIV-related dementia, explaining the confusion and memory lapses that had plagued his last performances. Most tragically, his liver was enlarged and damaged, partly from the experimental drugs he had desperately tried in Paris. Hudson's death forced America to confront the AIDS epidemic and its impact on Hollywood's closeted community. For decades, he had lived a double life, maintaining a fake marriage to Phyllis Gates while secretly loving men in an industry that demanded heterosexual perfection. The studio system that had made him a star had also trapped him in a prison of deception. His revelation sparked both compassion and controversy, humanizing AIDS victims while exposing Hollywood's systematic erasure of gay identity. The man who had been America's romantic ideal died alone. His true love life, hidden until death, finally stripped away all pretense and revealed the human cost of living a lie. The autopsy room strips away all pretense, revealing the brutal truth that glamour cannot hide disease, power cannot prevent death, and fame cannot protect against the consequences of self-destruction. These medical documents expose Hollywood's golden age as built on foundations of addiction, violence, and systematic cover-ups that destroyed lives while preserving profitable illusions. Each revelation, from Monroe's impossible overdose to Hudson's AIDS battle, demonstrates how studios prioritized image over human welfare. The same industry that created immortal screen legends simultaneously destroyed the mortal bodies that housed those performances. Behind every classic film lay broken hearts, poisoned lungs, and secrets buried in medical files that took decades to surface. Perhaps most disturbing is recognizing that these tragedies were preventable: the pills that killed Garland, the cigarettes that destroyed Newman, the radiation that murdered Wayne. All were known dangers that Hollywood chose to ignore when profits were at stake. These autopsy revelations serve as permanent reminders that no amount of fame can escape the final truth waiting in the morgue. Subscribe to ensure you never miss these important revelations that expose the real cost of entertainment's golden dreams.